have a mansion. In the post-apocalyptic world by Morningstar LL. Chapter 131, Rocket? Coming out of Lihua, Jiang Chen rejected Zhao Chunwu's invitation to stay in Paradise Island Hotel at no expense and walked straight to the development bureau. The inner circle had drastically changed. He remembered a few months ago, when he first came here, the only things that had left an impression on him were the spider tank and the fully equipped soldiers. Now, however, there were pedestrians in flamboyant clothing. The radiation dust in the air felt depressing as ever, but a touch of liveliness permeated the entire camp. Prosperity. Zhao Chunwu's high-end car was no longer unique. Fewer armored vehicles patrolled the streets now taken up by personal vehicles. Along the busiest street were building expansions here and there. After displaying his genetic ID to the patrolling soldiers, Jiang Chen entered the hall. "Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with?" a receptionist at the front desk said professionally while twirling a pen. "I'd like to buy a few plots of land to open a factory," he said casually as he flipped through the promotional materials on the desk. He was obviously not building a factory. It was fine as long as he built a warehouse. The key was to settle the 200 square meter criteria. 6th Street was about to establish the first bank, and 30% of the shares would be sold. The cake was too attractive to pass on. Imagining the scenario, the total number of factories and small production facilities numbered fewer than 20, but now that the average wealth increased exponentially, how tremendous would the economy boom be? It was no exaggeration to say that 20 would increase by at least fivefold within a year, and establishing a bank would only speed up this process. How many people would need a loan then? It was a guaranteed return. Purchasing assets? Thank you for choosing to invest in 6th Street. But sir, currently, the land available for development have been sold out. Maybe you could consider purchasing for existing owners. Sold out? This fast? Jiang Chen was shocked. He expected land development to be attractive, but he didn't expect the plots to be sold out so quickly. Jiang Chen frowned slightly, thinking a bit before continuing. "Are there any assets available for sale right now?" "Anywhere works." The receptionist was at a loss when she heard his words and gave him a strange look. "Perhaps. Why don't you go to the market and ask in the consignment exchange?" Bulk items and fixed assets were normally sold on consignment at the exchange. The seller normally provided the sale information while storing the related goods or property within the exchange. A buyer with the intent to purchase would then take the information and discuss a price with the seller in a meeting. Once the transaction was completed, the buyer only needed to bring the crystals to the exchange to walk away with the purchased goods. Jiang Chen held such a sheet of information in his hands with the words, "Store for sale, price negotiable," written on it. Jiang Chen paused in front of a building, examining the storefront. Perhaps to save on electricity, the words, "Fake Leg Specialty Store," were redundantly written out on the electronic board in black ink. There was a layer of dust on the wooden window, and the rusty door made out of scrapped shells looked worn down. He hesitantly raised his hand, and just as he was about to knock, the door was dragged open. A small square TV abruptly appeared before him, nearly startling Jiang Chen into pulling out his gun. The metal-plated mouth rapidly opened and closed, stuttering in a squeaky electronic voice, "Welcome, valued customer. The shop provides mechanical legs and mechanical prosthetic installations with outstanding services for wastelander who accidentally break their limbs." He stared at the robot. Its head and body were connected by a spring, and he began to understand why there were no customers. With such reception, it would be astonishing if a customer did show up. He pushed the junk robot aside and stepped into the store. The room was dimly lit, the faint odor of machine oil was in the air. The wall displayed an array of unknown electronic parts and equipment. There was, however, nobody manning the front. Jiang Chen scanned the room, calling out, "Ahem, is anyone here?" No reply. No one? Or busy with something else? He hesitated briefly before going up the stairs at the back of the store. The top landing was the attic, and from the open door, he heard mutters and occasional, unsettling explosions. "Is it a problem with the central processor?" "No, should be the engine control unit." The door and roof were wide open. The room was filled with an odd assortment of equipment, and in the corner was a small telescope beside a full-sensory sky map. In the middle of the room, there was a 2-meter-wide space, a cylinder as tall as 2 people, a pointed head. "Rocket?" The young man who was working with a screwdriver in hand was interrupted by the surprised voice and looked in the direction of the door. "That's right. It is a rocket." He threw the screwdriver to the side, rubbed his messy and oily hair, and smiled. Jiang Chen examined the rocket as tall as 2 people and burst out laughing. "Haha, someone finally understands the beauty of my design." The person clearly misunderstood, his expression excited as he opened his arms towards Jiang Chen. He smoothly avoided the hug from a man who obviously hadn't showered in a few days. Jiang Chen cleared his throat. The purpose of my trip is investment, right? I know. No, you seem to have Ms. Sure. The man suddenly gestured for silence. With a mysterious expression, he waved at Jiang Chen. Let me take you to see something fun. The man quickly sauntered to the corner of the room. Jiang Chen gave the man a strange look but eventually followed after a moment's hesitation. Power system normal, hydraulic balance normal, fuel normal. He muttered abstrusely as he typed rapidly on the silica gel touch board. His eyes were filled with a passionate light. Jiang Chen stood behind him and examined the sophisticated monitors. You are? Ignite. The excited roar startled Jiang Chen and interrupted his question. The hand slapped onto a red button. Boom! The fire erupted from the middle of the room, the scorching flames burning against the base made of unknown metal. The floor began to shake violently, and the window panes screeched. Gusts battered at them, and Jiang Chen had to cover his face from the rapid airflow. Between his fingers, his astonished expression could be seen. What the foo asterisk K, what the plane are you doing? Similar to, what the heck you are doing? It's a rocket. Space, here I come. Haha, launch. Against the violent airflow, the man struggled to maintain his balance. He placed his hand over the trigger and pushed it to the top. The air pressure increased explosively, pressing the man immediately to the ground. Jiang Chen, with his strong body condition, barely managed to remain on his feet. Just as he was about to fall, he activated the nitrogen armor on his right arm. The nitrogen armor burst out and expanded from his right arm. The special field created by the nitrogen created a decompression zone that deflected the airflow. The force was immediately cancelled out. Thanks, buddy. The young man barely managed to hold on to his body as he smiled awkwardly. Jiang Chen deactivated the nitrogen armor and glanced at the shadow already high in the sky. He threw a dirty look at the young man. Are you stupid? Firing a rocket from the room? What shocked him, even more, was that future technology allowed rockets to be launched from indoors. How advanced were the materials and fuel technology? The man gave a forced laugh as he rubbed at his messy hair. It's okay, 6th Street doesn't prohibit shooting things into the air. Jiang Chen was speechless. Patting at his mussed clothes, the man cleared his throat and extended his right hand. Jiang Lin, owner of 6th Street's fake leg specialty store. After a brief pause, Jiang Chen shook hands with him and then looked at him strangely. Fake leg? Can you tell me how fake legs are connected to rockets? Jiang Lin smiled, slightly embarrassed. The fake leg store was opened by my dad. And now? Although he asked, Jiang Chen had already guessed what happened. The son didn't continue his father's business, putting it aside to begin working on rockets? I'm not very good at that job. He shrugged, appearing forlorn, but then he waved his hand at Jiang Chen with renewed interest. Let me show you something cool. Jiang Lin left Jiang Chen again and hastily walked to the other side of the room. At a loss, Jiang Chen let out a defeated sigh before following. Based on the program settings, my Explorer 8 with the highest speed in the universe entered the orbit. Look. Jiang Lin's fingers pressed a few buttons on the touch board. Vibrant lights from the cylindrical image formation device began to interweave, creating a magnificent visual image. This is our planet. Jiang Lin spread his arms with a grin and hugged the imaginary visuals. He then turned around to Jiang Chen with proudly raised eyebrows. Jiang Chen's pupils contracted as he shook in disbelief. Wow, this is foo asterisk king amazing. Blue and yellow. It was his first time observing this land. Other than the colors, it was no different from the other world. The colors belonged to the ocean, and the clouds that were supposed to be white was instead mixed in with an unhealthy shade. This was the radiation dust, chemical dust, as well as industrial pollutants. Towards the northwest, the soil was dark green, supposedly belonging to a type of mutated plant. He remembered Sun Jiao mentioning before that there was an alliance to the north. On the south, the daunting, pitch black belonged to scorched earth. Because the rocket was close to the orbiting path and synchronized with the Earth's orbit, it could only view the areas in Asia, but the situation was likely no better on the other side of the Earth. From multiple perspectives, this planet is not suitable for human inhabitants. Despite the dark words, Jiang Lin's voice was calm. He then pressed a few more times on the touch board, causing the screen's perspective to suddenly change. This is? Jiang Chen shook himself out of his astonishment and stared at the belt of debris on the full sensory map. Space junk around the orbit that formed a belt close to Earth. The Third World War was not only fought on the surface. Jiang Lin smiled, then enlarged the image from Explorer 8. Most of the debris comes from sky-based weapons, space stations, satellites, as well as orbit attack shops and anti-satellite missiles. Part of the debris is also from the moon facility that was sent near the Earth's orbit from the force of the explosion. Sky-based weapons? Such as God's cane. He suddenly recalled the diary he had read before. Observing the chunks of metal debris, his expression held shock. But not because of the severity of the war. Chapter 132, Sorry, I am a businessman. Not because of the severity of the war. But because of the money. Any piece of debris out there was hundreds of years ahead of the modern-day world's space technology. If he sold it? Actually, it would likely be difficult to sell. Realizing this, Jiang Chen forced a smile. Just as he was about to give up the idea of digging for gold in space, he changed his mind. He thought, while it would be difficult to sell, what if he used it for himself? Once he acquired the island, he would be able to use his country's name to release a satellite, and that would be interesting. That's about it. Jiang Lin abruptly sighed, and the full hologram faded away. After a pause, Jiang Chen couldn't help asking, what happened? Didn't your rocket launch successfully? Jiang Lin shrugged and looked at Jiang Chen. It did launch successfully, but the nearby orbit is filled with magnetic pulses. You could say that it's nearly impossible to defend against EMP. Just by lasting this long, Explorer 8 has already reached its limit. Explorer 7 lasted only 10 seconds. Then what's point of firing this? Increase space debris? Jiang Chen glanced back at him. How could this be pointless? This is valuable data. Seeing his research being devalued, Jiang Lin immediately became displeased. He pressed a few more times on the touch board, releasing an image on the full sensory screen again, but this time, there was data that Jiang Chen couldn't make heads or tails of. Am I allowed to know what this data will be used for? Jiang Chen looked over the floating green dots with an odd expression. Preparation for interstellar travel. Zeal flickered in Jiang Lin's eyes. Jiang Chen was speechless. Interstellar travel? That's right. In 2176, the United Nations sent out 6 immigration ships into space, the nearest destination being Cape Larby in Alpha Centauri, 13 light-years away from Earth. So you're telling me that this firework can fly for 13 light-years? And you're prepared to send this firework to find the authority at Cape Larby? What firework? This is called Explorer 8. And of course, I'm not going to send this to Cape Larby. But isn't this space exploration? Experiment, collect data, make improvements. Now, after countless trials, I'm already here. Jiang Lin confidently pushed another button. What is this? Jiang Chen asked, confused from the diagram filled with data. Warp engine concept map. But because of funding problems, it's only 50% completed, hee. Jiang Lin scratched his head, abashed, and looked at Jiang Chen expectantly. What do you think? The warp engine can achieve speed faster than light, and there will be hibernation chambers to help pass the time on the journey. Are you interested? A short silence. I'd like to understand something. Does this have anything to do with me buying the property? Jiang Lin was unable to process Jiang Chen's meaning as he stared at him blankly. What? Jiang Chen took out the sheet of information and pointed at it. Store for sale, price negotiable. I don't think I came in through the wrong door. Jiang Lin's face immediately flushed, and he mumbled to himself, no, they can't do this. He swiftly seized Jiang Chen's hand, as if it was his last chance. Did you see the sign in front? Interstellar travel. Are you not interested in it? A world free of radiation, a brand new civilization, as long as you're willing to invest in my project. Sorry, I already have that world. I'm very sorry. I'm a businessman. Jiang Chen shrugged. I don't see any potential profits from your project. I'm happy living here, and I don't have any plans to fly into space. But, no buts. Looks like you're not the owner of this building? Or do you rent a place here? Jiang Chen sighed. Abrupt footsteps sounded from downstairs that rapidly approached them. Jiang Lin, how many times have I told you, don't build rockets in my *King house, a large man in a suit said viciously as he squeezed through the door, wiping his face. Ahem, I built a launch base. It won't damage the structure of the building, so your worry is. The man didn't seem interested in arguing with him. He rubbed his temples and said wryly, I don't care. Pay your 2 months of rent. Then take your junk and get out of my house. Jiang Lin's face immediately paled as he said, you can't. This is my house. The meaty man pointed at his nose, the few remaining hairs on his bald head nearly standing on end from fury. Calm yourself, Mr. Gu. We'll follow the procedure. A man in a black combat suit, holding an automatic rifle, strolled through the door and looked at Jiang Lin. Hello, Mr. Jiang. I am the enforcer of 6th Street. Based on the minimum, you must pay a total of 68 crystals to Mr. Gu Hongkai, or else the enforcement agency has the right to take action. Additionally, because the rental contract has been terminated, please move out within 3 days. Otherwise, the enforcement agency will have to resort to forceful measures. But I don't have that much money, Jiang Lin stuttered. Sorry, this is the law. Over the next 3 days, you're prohibited from leaving the house unless you're able to repay the debt. The enforcer shrugged and turned to Gu Hongkai. Are you pleased with the proceedings? Very pleased. Gu Hongkai didn't dare to get angry at the enforcer. He glared at the pale Jiang Lin, jabbing a finger at his face viciously. You better get the money ready, or... Jiang Chen, who was standing off to the side, suddenly interrupted him and said with some frustration, Are you the owner of the house? Pausing, Gu Hongkai raised his eyebrows at Jiang Chen. You are? Jiang Chen. If this information belongs to you, we can talk about the price now. Jiang Chen retrieved the information sheet and pointed at it. Gu Hongkai's eyes lit up immediately, and he smiled widely with sudden energy. Mr. Jiang would like to buy the house? Good, good. Let's have a nice chat at the bar. Since the problem is solved, I'll take my leave now. Gentlemen, I wish you a good day. The enforcer took out a ticket from his pocket and passed it to Jiang Lin before retreating downstairs. No need to go to the bar, Jiang Chen shook his head and refused. Let's talk here. Give me a price, and if it's reasonable, we can finish the deal now. The rejected Gu Hongkai did not look the slightest displeased, rather, his smile brightened further. He needed money to buy newly developed land to build a factory, hire hunting teams to head to the industrial area outside of the city to obtain production equipment, purchase raw materials, put in crystals to start production. Assets in the market? This store was not his only one, and making rent was not nearly as profitable as opening a factory. He was unaware of 6th Street's plan to open a bank, or else he would not have sold this property so cheaply. A buyer this straightforward was uncommon. After a moment's hesitation, Gu Hongkai threw out a reasonable price to test the waters. Based on 6th Street's development trajectory, my shop is at the center of the market. Combined with the warehouse in the back and a total area of 300 square meters, I want a total of 6,900 crystals. The rent was 34 crystals a month, and with a rent-to-house price ratio hovering around 200, it was a reasonable number. After some thought, Jiang Chen nodded. Selling a property in this high-potential area meant that Gu Hongkai needed some quick money. His eyes flashing, Jiang Chen opened his mouth. No problem, I'll pay the 6,900 crystals in one lump sum. But I have one requirement, put his debt under my name. Gu Hongkai calculated in his mind. 68 was not a small amount, but since he needed the money, he couldn't be bothered with it anymore. Gu Hongkai glanced at Jiang Lin before smiling and turning to Jiang Chen. Okay, as per Mr. Jiang's request, the debt will be transferred to your name. Jiang Chen nodded, then took the agreement passed over. He carefully scanned a few times before signing his name. He only needed to go to the exchange to pay the sum in order to obtain the property. 6,900 was not a small number, and most ordinary people would be unable to carry around such an amount. With the development of the economy, a bank was almost certainly necessary. Of course, with his storage dimension, Jiang Chen was an exception. Seeing Gu Hongkai, his debt owner, leave, Jiang Lin sighed and wiped the sweat off his forehead. Thanks, buddy. If not for you, I don't know how I would have taken care of this. Jiang Chen grabbed the debt ownership in hand and looked at Jiang Lin with a half-smile. Thank me? Too early for that. Jiang Lin perplexedly looked at Jiang Chen. The change in debt ownership doesn't mean the debt's been eliminated. Now you owe me 68 crystals. Jiang Lin's face that had just regained signs of life lost color once more. I don't have money, he gritted out. Jiang Chen didn't seem surprised at his response. He shrugged and continued, You have 2 choices. 1. Sell all assets in the store for cash. Considering the popularity of the firearm industry, there's a high demand for raw metal materials. These objects could be sold at junk price, no problem. Hearing that his goodies would be sold as junk, Jiang Lin immediately roared, No way. Don't even think about it. My equipment is worth at least 10,000. This is the door to the new world. Do you know the value of these things? Since you're a merchant, there's no way that you don't. Jiang Chen patiently waited for him to finish his spiel before smirking at Jiang Lin, who felt a chill run down his spine. Jiang Chen drawled, 10,000? Without recognition from the market, it's only wishful thinking. I can say my hair is worth billions, but who would buy it? Without a buyer, there's no value. In my opinion, our junk is not even worth 30 crystals. Fly to space? How many crystals have to be invested for that? How many years? With this small scale, it would take you 100 years before you can fly out of the solar system. Kepler B? Are you sure the ex-authorities are doing well out there? Are you certain you'll be welcomed? I'm sorry, but I'm a businessman. Word for word, Jiang Chen repeated his sentence, and they pierced Jiang Lin's heart like fine needles. His lips were bitten until they lost all color. With his research deemed as worthless, his heart was filled with rage, but he forced himself to suppress it. Jiang Chen's words woke him from his dream. No one would pay for his dream. Even if this equipment cost him hundreds of crystals, ordered from mercenaries who obtained them from the National Planetarium, no one would recognize the value of his work because it was unnecessary. He began to regret. If he wasn't so stubborn about leaving his father's business to die, if he didn't spend all of his efforts on space exploration, he would not be in this situation where he couldn't even afford rent. Jiang Lin breathed in deeply. He said quietly, "Can I hear the second option?" Finally hearing signs of maturity in that voice, Jiang Chen smiled. An immature dream was indeed not worth the investment, but a mature scientist was. Second option, work for me. Chapter 133, Your eyes should grow on your own head. Work for you? Jiang Lin hesitated as he gave Jiang Chen a perplexed look. Work in your factory? No. Jiang Chen held up a finger and shook it, staring straight into Jiang Lin's eyes. Come to my survival camp. I'll invest in your space project, but you'll have to follow my requirements. Jiang Lin looked suspiciously at Jiang Chen. A survival camp? I haven't left 6th Street that often, but it's not like I don't have a clue about the outside world. Who says your camp isn't a gathering of bandits? What if I become a slave going in? Jiang Chen smiled and walked up to Jiang Lin to pat his shoulder. Slave? Do you know how much it costs to buy a slave from the ghetto? Jiang Lin gulped. Before the slave trade was halted, including the microchip which costs 19 crystals, the price for a slave was as high as 50 crystals. Then do you think I need to spend 68 crystals to buy someone who has never done hard labor? Jiang Chen smiled. I don't plan on negotiating with you. You only have 2 options. Sell your dream as scraps, and go work at the factory to pay off the remaining crystals. Or sell your dream to me, and I'll provide you with resources and directions. All you need to do is install a chip on your neck. Listening to Jiang Chen speak, Jiang Lin's inner turmoil could be seen in his eyes, but in the end, he sighed in compromise. Before Jiang Chen's pleased gaze, he opened his mouth to say, I choose to. Since Jiang Lin had already nodded in agreement, the rest was fairly simple. Jiang Chen arranged for him to pack everything and then sent him to the clinic for injection. On the 10th, when they were to conduct the trade with the Zhao Corporation, Zhao Chenwu would send the people and the goods together. As for the store's new purpose? Jiang Chen had yet to think of a solution, but he went ahead and hired construction workers to seal the open roof. Since winter was coming, a tent that only shielded from rain did not seem reliable at all. Overall, the criteria of having a 200 square meter fixed asset were met for him to join 6th Street Bank. The next morning, Jiang Chen took Jiang Lin to the hospital. After paying a hospital fee of 19 crystals, Jiang Chen watched as the doctor reached the end of the hallway while he met up with the 5 people who were just exiting the rehabilitation room. Due to the chip's installation into the neural network, interference from the electric parts was inevitable. Therefore, after the injection, they were required to spend a few hours in rehabilitation, which they had just clearly finished, before being released from the hospital. Chunan saw Jiang Chen from afar and greeted him. Zhou Guoping had the same simpering smile, and Zhao Gang held his wife in silence. Zhou Xiaoxia's vision seemed to lag, as though she'd been injected with a tranquilizer. How are you feeling? Not bad. Chunan shrugged. Try your EP. A doctor in a white coat walked over and gave a nail-sized memory card to Jiang Chen before beating a hasty retreat to the surgery room. Holding the memory card in hand, Jiang Chen inserted it into the EP on his wrist. He noticed that while it was loading, Chunan's eyes stayed on the loading bar. Missing your freedom? Jiang Chen joked. Chunan smiled, then glanced away. What's freedom? From the moment I was born, I fought for one power, and now I changed to another one. The bar finished loading. Seeing the words "Is slavery" chip online, hovering on the screen, Jiang Chen grabbed the memory card and crushed it. Freedom is a good thing. Within certain boundaries, I'll grant you enough of it. Jiang Chen smiled at Chunan as he pressed buttons on the EP. Jiang Chen's face surfaced on the screen in a clear image. He was connected to Chunan's vision. Chunan rubbed his temple. Is this a neural injection? 6th Street slavery chip is quite intriguing. Looting Town doesn't have this? Jiang Chen asked casually as he selected the option to end the connection. No, we have more opportunity to fight long distance with few chances to battle on foot. We call it the dictator chip. It emphasizes communication and remote sensors, but it doesn't seem to be as stable as this one. It's controlled by the central processor on the ship and will grant control to someone's EP only under special permission. Chunan moved his limbs and gradually accustomed himself to the feeling. What about you guys? Jiang Chen asked as he surveyed the remaining 4 people. Zhou Guoping, with his shiny, bald head, continued his attempts to flatter. Hee, very good. I pledge allegiance to the boss. Zhao Gang's wife was a bit frightened and hid behind Zhao Gang's back. As he comforted her, he said solemnly, not bad. Zhou Xiaoxia, as usual, had the same blank expression. Some conversations were not meant for a public hearing. After confirming the chip's functionality, Jiang Chen took all 5 of them to the fake leg specialty store. Once they all arrived, Jiang Chen closed the door behind him. Seeing that the boss had something to say, Zhou Guoping's eyes rolled cleverly before he moved a chair for Jiang Chen to sit on from behind the counter. Chunan glanced at him and turned away disdainfully. Their conflict started over a month ago, but now that they worked under the same boss, there was no longer any opportunity to seek revenge. Zhao Gang held his wife's hand and stood off to the side in silence. I've arranged a few things, so listen up and follow. Jiang Chen sat on the chair without caring for appearance. Zhao Gang, take your wife back to the base and join the civil army while waiting for further orders. I understand. Chunan, since you're familiar with the helicopter, go purchase whatever's necessary for repairs. Then take her back. Jiang Chen pointed at Zhou Xiaoxia, who had yet to regain consciousness. No problem, but I don't have a single crystal on me. Chunan opened his palms helplessly. Under Chunan's shocked gaze, Jiang Chen grabbed 200 crystals from his pocket and threw it at him before clapping his hands. Okay, get moving. The 4 immediately left, leaving Zhou Guoping at a loss. Seeing Jiang Chen stay silent, Zhou Guoping stayed true to his servile character and proactively asked with a simpering smile, Boss? What about me? I heard that during your time working for the Huizhong mercenaries, you were stationed in 6th Street. You must be pretty familiar with the area? Jiang Chen leaned back, fingers crossed, and smiled decisively at Zhou Guoping. Hee, of course. Boss, what would you like to know? Zhou Guoping patted his chest confidently. Do you know any slave merchants? Zhou Guoping immediately nodded and said attentively, yes. There is a slave merchant from Sioux City in 6th Street. There are also clones from the 071 survival base, but because of production problems, they must be ordered beforehand. The good thing is that they are all original. What are you thinking about? Whether it's original or not, Jiang Chen jokingly cursed, I'm not planning on doing that. Boss, if you want, you can have some fun in New Ray Hotel. Once you train the newly produced clones a little, they're exactly like sex dolls. Zhou Guoping smiled lewdly. Okay, I'm talking to you about a serious matter, Jiang Chen interrupted with a frown. Yes. Contact the slave merchant. The base still needs 200 people. How much should the price be? Zhou Guoping thought for a moment. If they're ordinary slaves, 10 crystals each would be enough. If you're looking at Fallout Shelter 071's product, then probably 20 crystals. Considering the market at 6th Street, the population price could double. That's fine. Go ahead and contact them. Transportation is difficult during the winter, so put the order in first and ship them here next year. Try to lower the price as much as you can. It's time to test your ability. Zhou Guoping laughed and smacked his chest with confidence. Don't worry, boss. You can count on me. Once the population business was taken care of, it was now time to discuss the store's purpose. What do you think we should open this store for? Jiang Chen asked as he scanned the decoration in the store. Zhou Guoping's eyes rolled a bit, and he scratched his head. That's up to what the boss wants. If it's to make money, then a food store would definitely be the best choice. Jiang Chen thought for a bit before shaking his head. Not a food store. Zhao Chenwu has already taken care of 6th Street's food business. Fishbone Base needed an alliance, and therefore it was necessary to give up part of the profit. From now on, Zhao Chenwu was a genuine partner, maintaining the relationship would bring more profit than opening a food store. It was especially pointless to use this store to make money. Fishbone Base had nothing attractive to 6th Street beside food. Other than crystals, Jiang Chen needed more intelligence. From the information on the bank, he realized the importance of gathering intelligence. If Zhao Chenwu didn't leak the information to him, the opportunity to make more than 100,000 crystals would have slipped through his fingers. Since he did not have any agents here, he had to rely on Zhao Chenwu for all events at this location. It was unwise to entrust his eyes to someone else. As Fishbone grew, he needed to consider more factors. I need you to gather intelligence for me here. Record any information you think valuable. You worked for the Huizhong mercenaries before, so you should be familiar with this type of work. Zhou Guoping smiled self-assuredly, responding immediately with, of course, boss. I'm great at this sort of thing. When I used to work for the Huizhong mercenaries, I spent all day in bars and official purchasing centers, recording all of the fat prey and sending the information back. We could open our own bar. There's nothing better in this world than alcohol to make a person spill the truth. Bar? Jiang Chen paused and looked at him with an odd expression. There are bars in the 6th Street? There were no crops to produce the alcohol, so how could there be a bar? It is processed methanol. Just a small quantity is fine. Industrial alcohol is drinkable. What the foo*k, the alcoholics in the apocalypse go pretty far. But speaking of this, he forgot that selling alcohol was an excellent way to make money, perhaps even more popular than food. I'll leave the bar to you. Get someone to renovate this place, and send me a message when it's done. Don't worry about the alcohol, I'll take care of it. If the alcoholics smelled the scent of beer, wine, and baijiu, would they barrel down the door of the bar? The more he thought about it, the brighter his smile became. Although alcohol was scarce in the apocalypse because of the lack of crops, that was nothing in the modern world. Any store had an abundance of it. Seeing his boss's delighted mood, Zhou Guoping was also secretly happy. His future depended on Jiang Chen. If Jiang Chen was satisfied, then he would be better off. Yes, boss. Zhou Guoping responded and bowed with a flourish. Chapter 134, The Bullet Shell Bar. Off to the side of a store was a door, and on it hung a rotten slat of wood. A few crooked words were carved into it with a dagger, the Bullet Shell Bar. This was the place Zhou Guoping had talked about. According to him, it was an entertainment hub of 6th Street. After arranging for Zhou Guoping to handle the renovations, Jiang Chen personally came here to do some market research since he didn't know the tastes of the people. The best way to find out was to personally have a drink or two. While the renovations weren't the best, there was a surprising number of customers. Strange individuals covered in large trench coats sat alone at a table near the door, drinking alcohol that stung the nose. A young man with a red headscarf had a cigarette in his mouth and one foot on a chair as he dealt cards. There were lone travelers, bandits, and those of the profession that recently came into popularity, hunters. Women in exposed clothing leaned against the bar under the flickering lights and waited for tonight's prey to take the bait. And among the shadows, a black market merchant hid, selling harmless products. The air in the bar was shrouded, and the noise cluttered the already limited room. This was Jiang Chen's first impression upon stepping into the space. It was not an illusion that when he took a step onto the dry wooden floor, at least 10 pairs of eyes flicked over at him. Some were friendly, most were not. After a second's pause, Jiang Chen continued to walk and directly approached the bar counter. Are you not going to buy me a drink? Handsome. A woman in heavy makeup leaned against the counter and displayed a charming smile. Jiang Chen ignored her with a smile and looked beyond the counter at the bartender who was silently wiping a cup. White shirt, black pants, a relatively clean appearance. But the slight beer belly turned what should have been suave movements into rather comical motions. What do you have here? Jiang Chen sat on the chair and asked casually. Hearing Jiang Chen's words, the bartender stopped and glanced at Jiang Chen. Your first time here? Uh-huh. Lots of things. Alcohol, nut coke, e-orange, coca tea. The chubby bartender resumed wiping the glass cup that had been cleaned countless times. Also, hamster milk tea and cockroaches smoothie. A young man whistled and laughed. I won't sell those things to newcomers. The bartender kept his head down. Looks like I don't have the opportunity to experience those. Jiang Chen shrugged as he joked, then said, give me one of each. The bartender's hand stopped. He turned around to open the fridge and placed odd glass bottles on the counter. 2, 1, 2, 3. A total of 8 crystals. Jiang Chen reached into his pockets and took out 8 crystals from the storage dimension. He casually slapped it onto the table. His ostentatious moves led to a wave of whistleblowing and looks of avarice. The bartender quietly took the crystals and didn't say a word as he continued to work. He looked over the 4 bottles of drink. Jiang Chen's eyebrows twitched. These things looked as suspicious as they could get. The alcohol seemed relatively normal, should be like baijiu? The nut coke was the oddest, its fluorescence did not seem potable at all. The e-orange was similar to orange juice, and the coca tea was green like seaweed, its cloudy liquid interspersed with questionable fragments. These things are drinkable? Jiang Chen couldn't resist asking. Howls of laughter erupted from behind him. A giant of a man walked up with a smirk on his face before planting his foot on the chair beside him to roughly ask, Yo noob. These drinks are too much for you. Why don't you play with us? If you're lucky, 1 crystal could become 10. His tone and expression assumed Jiang Chen was already in the bag, and the play he referred to was obviously gambling. Jiang Chen glanced at him and instead of showing anger, smiled. Then why don't we play a game as well? As he said this, Jiang Chen didn't allow the man a chance to say yes or no. He slowly withdrew a crystal worth 50 energy crystals from his pocket and waved it in front of the giant who was showing off. 2 crystals per turn. Guess which hand the crystal's in. If you're right, then it's yours. The giant was at a loss at Jiang Chen's abrupt actions, but his expression soon became ecstatic. He thought, this dumba asterisk guess. If I guess 10 times, regardless of how you trick me, I'm guaranteed to be correct at least once. But he wasn't a dunce. If Jiang Chen left after 2 turns, his crystals would have gone to waste. 20 crystals and I guess 10 times. The giant smiled viciously and slammed the crystals onto the table. The people standing around all gave sympathetic looks at Jiang Chen. Unfortunate that he was targeted by Lu Meng. Hee, this noob is really unlucky. The ones who were gloating were mainly the giant's comrades. Lu Meng? That's a good name. Lu Meng is homonym for the word thug. His lips moved as he muttered in his mind. Jiang Chen didn't seem bothered as he took the 20 crystals on the table. No problem. It'd be fine even if you wanted to guess 100 times. Jiang Chen yawned as he threw the energy crystal into the air with nimble hands. Lu Meng's vision blurred, and the crystal seemed to disappear from his sight. Upon seeing Jiang Chen's movements, the gloating expressions of the people suddenly twisted while those who were compassionate rejoiced. It was going to be a good show. Cold sweat rolled down Lu Meng's forehead. He wasn't able to see where the crystals went. He estimated that the reflex of this person was at least 25. And though he was also injected with the genetic vaccine, it had been the standard E grade. Take a guess. Jiang Chen placed his hands before Lu Meng with a bored expression. Since he hadn't been able to see it clearly, Lu Meng took a wild guess. Right hand. Jiang Chen laughed. Congratulations. You're wrong. There was nothing in his right hand. You're a fraud. Lu Meng was immediately unhappy. His eyes bulged, and his companions inched closer with unfriendly expressions. So what if he had the genetic vaccine, who hadn't? Even if it was a lower quality version, they had an advantage in numbers. Jiang Chen rolled his eyes and opened his left hand. On his palm was a bright purple crystal. There are 9 more chances. Are you still going to guess? He did not seem afraid at all. Lu Meng was surprised. He originally thought that since Jiang Chen hadn't immediately revealed his left hand, the crystal must have been hidden away, but it was actually in the left hand. Under everyone's watch, although he had always acted recklessly, he didn't dare to start a fight. After further thought, there were still 9 more chances. Lu Meng signaled his pawns away and let up on his act. He glared at Jiang Chen. Yes, start. A hint of mockery appeared in Jiang Chen's smile as the crystal was thrown into the air again. He must be joking. Was he the type to use fraud? The answer was definitely. No matter which hand Lu Meng chose, the crystal would always appear in the other hand. The storage dimension was a fraud's holy grail. Jiang Chen imagined that if he went to Macau, all of the legendary gamblers would have to move aside for him. Last time. You better be careful. Jiang Chen lazily waved his hands in front of Lu Meng. Lu Meng's eyes were pure red as they locked onto the 2 fists. He tried to spot differences in size, but it was futile. This was the gambler's mindset. They would not stop until they lost every single crystal. He had already lost the previous 20 crystals, and he immediately put up the last 10 that he had. He only needed to win once to make all of the money back, so close. But when Jiang Chen opened his hands, he was wrong again. That's impossible. A 50% probability, how could I not even guess it right once? You're a fraud. Lu Meng immediately flared up as he cursed and kicked the chair away with his feet with a fighting posture. Seeing Lu Meng's actions, everyone around exposed looks of disdain. Anyone could see that Jiang Chen was cheating, but if there was no evidence, why was he trying to act like the big man? But the reckless Lu Meng didn't care. Instead, he ordered his thugs to surround Jiang Chen. Buddy, you dare to cheat me? You think you're tough? Let me tell you, if you don't return the crystals you cheated me out of with both hands and knees on the ground, I'll make sure you don't leave standing up. Jiang Chen flicked his eyes over at the furious Lu Meng and opened his mouth calmly. You lose 9 times out of 10 in gambling, has no one taught you this before? Also, speaking of this, does the civil force care enough to come here? The young man that whistled at Jiang Chen earlier still sat in his original seat. He sipped at his alcohol and laughed without regard to the atmosphere. Of course, but the cop is always late. That's perfect then. Jiang Chen laughed. Being ignored, anger shot straight to Lu Meng's head, and he reached for Jiang Chen's collar. Fu *ku, I'm speaking to you. Boom. Without warning, Jiang Chen kicked out. Lu Meng felt like his chest was slammed by a hammer as he flew backward like a kite with its string broken. He slid across a table and directly cannonballed out the door. The bartender looked at Jiang Chen with shock before placing the glass cup aside and subtly pressing the emergency call button beside the counter. The crowd, seeing the conflict, began to whistle and cheer. Fu *k hit that bit *h. Seeing their leader kicked away, the thugs all grabbed weapons to swarm Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen calmly avoided a side swipe as fury immediately activated. He pinched the dagger in front of him and used the suddenly explosive power to drag it aside and stab it into a thug's shoulder. Ah! The thug screamed in pain and fell backward. Jiang Chen didn't stop there. He dragged a thug to him with his right hand clenched over his chest and blocked a few bats from falling on him. Haha, amazing. Give him the upper chin. Use the chair, Dumba *s. The crowd did not shy away from trouble. Sometimes they cheered for Jiang Chen, and sometimes they swore at the thugs for being useless. A group of people couldn't even beat one man. With all of the banging, the thugs didn't manage to land any hits on Jiang Chen. Instead, the bats hit all of their own people. Fury deactivated. Cheering, the crowd celebrated the winner. The woman who tried to strike up a conversation with him earlier gently licked her seductive, red lips with bright eyes, but Jiang Chen continued to ignore her. He clapped his hands and glanced at the thugs on the floor. The young man drinking alone beside the counter smiled. I was waiting for you to lose so that I could get a few drinks out of you. Looks like you won't have the chance. Jiang Chen shrugged as he laughed. Fu*k, you dare to hit me. I'll beat you too. Lu Meng limped into the room limping as he cursed. But when he saw the thugs on the ground and the mocking looks on the crowd's faces, his mouth froze. Meeting Jiang Chen's mischievous grin, he looked at the thugs on the ground again as if he couldn't accept this reality. Do you know who I am? Once he saw that he couldn't win the fight, Lu Meng began to threaten him with a malevolent stare at Jiang Chen. Oh? You are? Jiang Chen casually picked up the e-orange and took a sip, but the saccharine taste nearly made him throw it back up. What, people drink this? The crowd was also shocked as they thought, what, people drink this directly? Jiang Chen put the drink back with the same mischievous expression. I am close to the Huizhong mercenaries. Since you're wandering around in the area, you must know about them. A sneer surfaced on Lu Meng's face as he stared directly into Jiang Chen's eyes. He wanted to see a hint of fear in those pupils. But he would inevitably be disappointed by Jiang Chen's reaction. When he heard the name Huizhong mercenaries, he resisted the urge to laugh. Are you close with them? Jiang Chen looked at him impishly. That's right, and if you don't want to lie in a casket the second you step out of 6th Street, then you better apologize, and give you some compensation? Jiang Chen laughed as he said uncaringly. Lu Meng paused, finally realizing that this person's reaction was off. That's right. If you know any better, then take out the crystals. Jiang Chen glanced at him and slowly said, since you know them so well, do you have any idea where they are now? They're in the Songjiang area. I'm close to their leader, Lu Meng said cockily. No, they're in Qingpu. Jiang Chen shook his finger. Their bodies are sprayed with formalin and hung up on light posts. Lu Meng was speechless as he looked at Jiang Chen in disbelief. What nonsense are you spouting? Are you in your right Fu*king mind? You better. He's not lying. The young man sitting beside the counter laughed as he pointed his cup in Jiang Chen's direction. Because he took care of all those Dumba *ses. Chapter 135, I'm from Jia City. The crowd was shocked by these words. Shock was written all over Lu Meng's face. He did wonder why he hadn't met the Huizhong mercenaries in so long. Could it be that what he said was? His shock gradually turned into fear. I did hear that the Huizhong mercenaries offended the wrong force and was wiped out. It seemed to be a force from Qingpu. Oh, I remember. An alcoholic from Qingpu did say this. Lone travelers on the wasteland naturally had heard some news. For example, Songjiang was suddenly stabilized, and the Huizhong mercenaries' raid team had abruptly evaporated into thin air. No one would have guessed that this recognized force had been wiped out by the man standing in front of them. The woman that continued to piercingly gaze at Jiang Chen was even more shocked. If she was tempted in the beginning, now she didn't care about the price anymore. The greedy gazes from the shadows were now wary. They began to question how they would have fared against the Huizhong mercenaries. That's impossible. Lu Meng stared at Jiang Chen as if looking at a ghost. He shivered, unable to properly articulate his words. Jiang Chen didn't bother with Lu Meng anymore. Instead, he smiled at the young man who was sipping at his drink. I've heard that this industrial alcohol is not too good for you. It's fine. You can have 2 bottles as well. People with genetic vaccines have a strong digestive system. The man put down his cup and laughed casually. You know who I am? Of course. I came from Jia City for the sole purpose of finding you. The young man shrugged and extended his right hand. Lin Chowan, from Jia City's Defenders. Pleased to meet you. Defenders? Why don't you call yourself the Avengers? Jiang Chen. With an odd expression, Jiang Chen similarly extended his hand for a handshake, but the caution in his eyes remained. Don't look at me like that. I'm a nice person, Lin Chowan said innocently in response to the look of distrust in his eyes. Jiang Chen didn't refute him and looked away. He returned to the seat beside the counter and turned to the frightened Lu Meng. You're lucky. At least you can choose which brand of formalin you want to use. When he heard those words, Lu Meng immediately got on his knees. Please spare me. I didn't know any better. Enough, I've heard too much of the same thing. If you want to live? Jiang Chen said irritably. He slapped the counter. These 4 strange concoctions, you can get the hell out once you finish them. Lu Meng's face turned green instantly. An entire bottle of industrial alcohol. Half of his life would be gone by the time he finishes. What a waste. Why don't you? Before Lin Chowan could finish, a bottle flew in his direction. He caught the object thrown at him by Jiang Chen and laughed as he poured himself another cup. The remaining 3 bottles, go ahead. Jiang Chen slowly said as he stared at Lu Meng. The 3 drinks did not look normal at all. He didn't have the intention to drink it himself. But for market research, as well as curiosity, it was not a bad idea to find his own white rat. Lu Meng thought about Jiang Chen wiping out the Huizhong mercenaries and lost all courage to fight back. He bit the bullet as he valiantly walked up, picked up the bottle of nut coke, and began to guzzle it. The crowd blew whistles as the lot of them stared at his pants mockingly. By the time he finished the entire bottle, Jiang Chen was shocked to discover that this guy's pants had lit up. That's right, lit up. Nut coke adds a trace amount of a radioactive strontium isotope that makes the pee fluorescent. Damn, a whole bottle in one sitting. This guy's D*K could be a light bulb for an entire day, Lin Chowan mocked as he took a sip. Radioactive element? Is it not harmful to the human body? Jiang Chen asked as he gave a weird look at the nut coke. This thing is harmless. They sold it before the war. Lu Meng picked up the dark green coca tea. His forehead twisted, but he still raised his head with a look of agony and started to chug. Coca tea has an excessive amount of T polyphenol as well as other radiation-resistant substances. It doesn't look the best and tastes bitter to the point of stinking, but the radiation resistance effect is quite superb. Just as Lin Chowan finished speaking, Lu Meng's pants lost all illumination. After finishing the 2 bottles, Lu Meng held the last orange and looked at Jiang Chen with a troubled expression. Why are you looking at me? Drink. Jiang Chen stared at him. Yes, yes. Lu Meng grit his teeth as he began drinking from the bottle. As soon as it reached his stomach, however, he fell unconscious to the ground. Orange, concentrated sweetener. The normal way to drink it is to use the cap to pour it into a big bottle of clear water. If he drank this entire bottle, it'd be better to send him to the hospital right away, Lin Chowan explained with a smile. Jiang Chen glanced at him but didn't say much. A few enforcers in black combat suits walked in, catching sight of the thugs on the ground as they eyed the bartender questioningly. They were the one escalating the conflict. They were taught a lesson. The bartender neutrally explained the situation. From his calm expression, it didn't seem to be his first time dealing with this sort of situation. The enforcer smiled at Jiang Chen. We apologized for your infringed rights. The people who started the conflict will receive a 15-day imprisonment sentence. Afterwards, the enforcers walked up with handcuffs and escorted the people from the ground and away. The enforcers from 6th Street would always have a courteous attitude, but in times of conflict, they would not hesitate to pull out their gun to shoot. Seeing the cops take the people away, the crowd began to disperse because there was nothing more to see. The bar returned to its previous busy atmosphere. The gamblers rolled die, and alcoholics nursed their cups. The woman in heavy makeup was prepared to strike up a conversation with Jiang Chen before she suddenly realized that he was not there anymore. In the alley beside the bar, there were deserted junks covered by layers of dust that had accumulated over time. The area was dimly lit, and mutated moss covered the walls. It had been a while since anybody had passed by this area, but 2 figures now stood there. Speak your mind. Why did you travel so far to find me? Jiang Chen looked at Lin Chowan with an odd expression. He didn't recall going to Jia City before. Could reputation spread through the air? Regardless, Lin Chowan's ability was not to be underestimated. To be able to wander the wasteland freely without a large group to protect him, only those with insane powers could do that. Jiang Chen was also curious to know why he sought him. Seeing Jiang Chen ask straightforwardly, the grin on Lin Chowan's face began to fade into a more serious expression. A few days ago, a mutated human began moving towards Wanghai City and destroyed a survivors' gathering spot. It was a bandit nest, Jiang Chen shrugged and added. Whatever it was, I followed the mutated human's tracks to Songjiang in Wanghai City, but then I only found proof of it being attacked. I came to 6th Street shortly after and heard rumors about you in the bar. Based on the information, the real outcome must be that the mutated human destroyed the Huizhong mercenaries, and they happened to bump into you, after which you wiped them out. You could interpret it that way. And? I've been trying to find you, but all I heard was that you were in the Qingpu area but not the exact location. Now we've met by coincidence today, boss of Fishbone Base, Jiang Chen. Lin Chowan stared into Jiang Chen's eyes as he spoke in a low undertone. So why did you want to find me? Jiang Chen reiterated the question. He didn't want to be involved with a mutated human again. Fighting them was a lost cause. Lin Chowan seemed to have expected Jiang Chen's reaction. After a pause, he continued, based on our information, the mutated human's force has been gathering in the western area of Wanghai City. Western area? That's Qingpu and Songjia? They're moving in this direction? Jiang Chen's face suddenly changed color. His fishbone base was in the Qingpu area. But then he remembered something and looked suspiciously at Lin Chaoan. Wait, if you're in Jia City, the mutated humans moving towards Wanghai City would be a good thing for you. Why did you come find me? You don't know the conflicts between us and the mutated human, so obviously you would suspect my intentions. The defender's job is to defend against the mutated humans. Lin Chaoan paused and said, in the past few years, they've been using Area 7 as their base to capture, raid, and enslave people from Jia City. Any resistance was met with death. People of the right age were submerged into vials to receive new life, and become D***class like them. Their existence is anti-human to begin with, and so you and I fight against a common enemy. Jiang Chen quietly gazed at Lin Chaoan, and after a while, said, why are the mutated humans coming to Wanghai City? Since you found me, you must have some clues about their intentions. Precisely. Lin Chaoan nodded, then took out the computer and expanded the full sensory map. His finger placed on a spot in the city center, he continued, Carmen Pharmaceutical, they were researching genetic medications and production businesses. It was rumored that they had a partnership with the military. So? Jiang Chen didn't seem to care. Under the partnership, their project was based on the scenario that should the world erupt into a full-scale nuclear war, what would allow Pac citizens to gain radiation resistance in a short time, making them become the sole adapters in the new world. The result of this project was precisely the FEV virus. Jiang Chen was stunned, and he looked at Lin Chaoan in disbelief. He recalled that mutated humans were the product of merging with the FEV virus. FEV virus? Used on us? Jiang Chen still couldn't fathom the truth. He always thought that the FEV virus was a biological weapon created in a laboratory to be used against citizens on the enemy's side. He didn't dare to imagine that the virus had been designed with its own citizens in mind. Nothing would spread faster than a virus, it was the most efficient means of transmission. But the FEV virus was incomplete. The half-finished product was effective only in special nutrients, and it would create misshapen humans who were unable to reproduce. Let's not discuss whether the authorities were humane or not. What's critical now is that these deformed, D***class things seem to have obtained some information that led them to believe that within the Carmen Pharmaceutical building, there is an improved version of the FEV virus that could lead them to a state of higher evolution. It would also allow them to gain the reproductive ability that they had always dreamed of. Jiang Chen's face completely changed when he heard those words. Why don't you go to the pharmaceutical company before them? And destroy the improved version of the FEV virus? Lin Chaoan immediately rejected the proposal while shaking his head. Impossible. First, the company is located within a high radiation area. Unless you have power armor or radiation-resistant suits, the iodine in the EP would not be enough to approach the area. Also, even if we did arrive at Carmen Pharmaceutical, we wouldn't be able to enter the building without the passcode. The security robot would eliminate any unidentified target attempting to break in. Then blow the entire building up. Jiang Chen said viciously. Lin Chaoan gave Jiang Chen an odd look. A building that could survive the nuclear missile, what kind of explosives do you think could blow it up? Jiang Chen was completely listless. Fu*K, why don't you go to the 6th Street officials to talk about this? Lin Chaoan smiled bitterly. The council wouldn't believe me, and I don't have the confidence to persuade the minimum requirement of 5 council members. To be fair, it's a problem for our Jia City. Even if the mutated human obtained the improved virus, they would return to Jia City to take a bath and devastate the survivors there. Do you think 6th Street would leave their golden age of development and fight a war of lost causes? Then why bother finding me? Because the mutated humans will pass by your front door. They have no reason not to bite into the juicy meat beside their mouths, Lin Chaoan shrugged and said honestly. You're saying my fishbone base is a piece of juicy meat? Jiang Chen disagreed. In terms of defense, power armors aren't able to utilize their advantage in mobility, especially since you don't have many to begin with, according to the marks left behind on the battlefield. On the other side, there are more than 40 mutated humans. With narrowed eyes, Jiang Chen locked gazes with Lin Chaoan. Lin Chaoan fearlessly met Jiang Chen's stare, retracted the computer pen, and extended his right hand again. We can partner up, against the common enemy. Chapter 136, For Our Interest. Best of luck to us. Jiang Chen shook Lin Chaoan's hand. Just as Lin Chaoan said, if the mutated humans passed through Qingpu, there was a large probability that a battle would erupt. Hoping that the mutated humans wouldn't discover Fishbone Base was as unreliable as leaving a sheep farm open while praying the wolf pack wouldn't attack. From the mutated human's perspective, every ancient human was a stubborn coward, while normal people viewed these neo-humans as ugly and D***class. From the start, the two sides had no chance of negotiating. The two exchanged communication channels for both camps, and Lin Chaoan, in a show of sincerity, agreed that if the mutated humans from Area 7 showed signs of movement, the defenders would notify Fishbone Base immediately. At the same time, they signed a defense pact against the mutated humans. Once the mutated humans started their march towards Wanghai City, both parties would send their forces to intervene. For a common interest. Lin Chaoan left right away as soon as they finished business to return to Jiao City and report their status. Jiang Chen rested for a bit before a bitter smile appeared on his face. Mutataumans. Fu *k, why is there trouble after trouble? He had to speed up his armed force development. But winter was approaching. Maybe under the harsh conditions, the mutated humans would choose to march to Wanghai City in the coming spring? Hopefully, the snow is thick enough. He shook his head and walked towards the fake leg specialty store. On the way, he happened to meet Zhou Guoping, who was chatting with the construction worker. Seeing his boss, Zhou Guoping immediately sent the construction worker away and walked up to fawn on Jiang Chen. "Boss, need me for anything?" As soon as he and Zhou Guoping entered the room, he closed the door and got straight to the point. "If I want to purchase heavy weapons, how do I go about doing this?" Zhou Guoping paused and began to give it serious thought. If it's in Wanghai City, 6th Street could produce it, but the Group of 10 Council has restrictions in place to prevent heavy weapons from entering the external market. Other than 6th Street, the Birkin Company in the north specializes in heavy weaponry production without any restrictions. Due to the long distance and limited production capability, however, they don't have a representative here accepting orders. What about outside of Wanghai City? There is a heavy weaponry factory in Sioux City, but due to high prices, not many can afford them. "It's been a while since I saw them," Zhou Guoping said hesitantly. "Expensive? How expensive?" "Very." Zhou Guoping forced a smile. "They only sell giant weapons. Based on my understanding, the 85mm tank cannon is priced at 7,000 crystals. Also, as long as you can afford it, they even sell tanks." "Tanks?" Jiang Chen's eyes instantly lit up. "Pay attention. When they're here, immediately notify me. I'll head back to Fishbone Base after this, so you'll take care of the tasks here." Jiang Chen patted him on the shoulder and encouraged him, "Do a good job. I have faith in you." Ignoring how the ecstatic Zhou Guoping tried to suck up to him, he left a few hundred crystals as an initial fund to start the store before he left. It was already the start of October, and the plan for the apocalypse was about to start. He had to go back and make some preparations. After leaving 6th Street, Jiang Chen headed for the sewerage entrance guarded by the Zhao Corporation. Following the surge in trade between Fishbone Base and Zhao Corporation, the sewerage had been upgraded. The mold and dirt on the road were cleaned away, and the confusing intersections were locked off. The wall corners were even installed with light-activated cold lamps. He took the elevator back to the surface where a soldier guarding the elevator saluted. With a nod of acknowledgement, Jiang Chen followed the closed-off concrete walkway to the inside of Fishbone Base. At the shooting range outside of the wall, Jiang Chen found Zhao Gang. "How do you feel?" Jiang Chen smiled. "Not bad." Shao Gong nodded. After that terrible incident, the audacious man had become reticent. 10 for 10, damn, how is this not bad? Chang Weigua carried the rifle and spoke while laughing. Jiang Chen looked at Zhao Gang with surprise and nodded appreciatively. "I have a mission for you." "Uh-huh." Zhao Gang agreed without asking for the details. Jiang Chen took out the computer pen and marked Area 7 on the map. "I need you to head for Area 7 and find out as much information as you can about the mutated humans. Their camp spot, combat power, number of people, the more specific, the better." The more he knew about the enemy, the higher the chances of winning against them. The mutated humans were stationed in Area 7, and Fishbone Base had no information on them at all. Based on the crossfire from last time, however, mutated humans were not to be underestimated even with armor or firepower. Jiang Chen also didn't completely trust Lin Chaoan's words. It was far more reliable to send his own men. "Understood. When should I leave?" "Tomorrow. Take some time to prepare. If you need any equipment, just let Chen Weigua know and take it directly from the armory. 10 nutrient supplies, as well as this rifle." Zhao Gang shook his head. In terms of scouting, the probability of engaging in combat is low. Although the base had compressed crackers, in terms of convenience, it could not match the nutrient supply that could replenish both energy and water. "That's fair. Then I'll count on you. Be quick." Jiang Chen patted him on the shoulder as he said seriously. "Uh-huh." As expected, he nodded without any arguments against the mission. Returning to the mansion, Jiang Chen happened to bump into Lin Lin, who came out of shower humming. Seeing her so happy, he couldn't resist the temptation to make fun of her. "You don't short-circuit?" Lin Lin's eyebrows traveled all the way up, but as she was about to give a rebuttal, she thought about how she was under his control and froze in place. Jiang Chen was surprised to see her hold her tongue. Oh, what's the progress on the mission I gave you? Do you think scientific research is like masturbation? It will come out after rubbing a little? Finally, Lin couldn't resist the temptation to curse. Jiang Chen looked at her oddly. He couldn't connect the vulgar words with the elf-like looks of this girl. Although I haven't done research before, have you masturbated? Lin's face turned red, and cursed under her breath, pervert. She ran away with her head buried. It's so fun teasing this girl. Seeing Lin flee the scene, Jiang Chen laughed malevolently. But first things first. He shook his head and put Lin's matter aside to go up to the second floor and find Sun Jiao. You're back? Sun Jiao eyes brightened when she saw him. She dropped the items in her hands and with upturned lips, greeted him delightfully. Uh-huh. Jiang Chen hugged the passionate Sun Jiao and asked, how's the bank mission doing? We've shipped the gold back. It's around 15 tons. The marks have been sanded off, and right now, it's piled up in the pool, she said intimately. Sun Jiao looked deeply into Jiang Chen's eyes. Thank you. He touched her soft hair and returned her gaze. Of course. I'm so tired. She stretched and was pleased to hear the light gulping nose. Smirking, she continued, how are you planning on rewarding me? Ahem, let's talk about this tonight. Jiang Chen touched his nose, looking away shyly. He caught sight of something strange beside the bed. That is, a towel? Eh? What is this? Jiang Chen craned his neck to look curiously at the strange item. Sun Jiao's face immediately turned red. She dashed to the bedside and hid the unknown item under the blankets. What? What are you talking about? Her eyes began to wander. It was rare for her to play dumb. Curious. Jiang Chen was unable to control his interest and began to ask energetically, the thing you just hid. No. What did I just hide? Sun Jiao's eyebrows rose as she said fiercely. No, I saw it with my own eyes. Illusion. It must be an illusion. Vehemently denying it, Sun Jiao blushed and pushed at Jiang Chen, who tried to leap over to see. She then slammed the door shut. Phew. Sun Jiao sat on the bed and exhaled. Her heart was beating so fast. Ah, this is too embarrassing. It's not like me. Sun Jiao's hands patted her burning red face as she dove into the bed. She reached for the blanket and covered herself like an ostrich. The treasure hidden under the blanket was exposed. It was an old magazine. Based on the publication date, it was printed before the war. How to capture your boyfriend's heart, weave a scarf for him in the cold winter. Attached, simple weaving technique. Sun Jiao, who had been born in a survival base and lived wandering the wasteland, didn't know what love was. It was something she had never learned before. She picked up this magazine from the bank, unaware of what scarves were, but she was intrigued by the printed words on the front page. Could a scarf be this magical? Sun Jiao didn't really understand. But if Jiang Chen came from before the war, then it had to be useful for him. She firmly believed this. Standing by the poolside, Jiang Chen observed the lustrous gold. In the apocalypse, this gold was worth less than dirt. He took a deep breath and submerged his conscious into the storage dimension. Compared to before, the storage dimension seemed to have expanded by a lot, from 1 cubic meter to 5 cubic meters now. But Jiang Chen was still clueless on how the interdimensional bracelet evolved. Charging it repeatedly seemed to be useful, but otherwise, it was not obvious. The overload from last time seemed to have increased the size of the storage dimensional by quite a lot, but Jiang Chen didn't dare to do anything so dangerous again. Instead of overloading it, it could potentially fry the bracelet. Putting the gold into the storage dimension, Jiang Chen was prepared to return to the modern world, but he suddenly remembered the promise he made with Sun Jiao. A smirk appeared on his face. I'll go back tomorrow morning. Chapter 137, Close the door. When he left Sun Jiao's room, it was already noon. A smile rose unbidden to his face when he recalled the intimacy from last night. She seemed to sense that he'd be gone for a while because she'd been extra passionate. By the time the two fell asleep in each other's embrace, it was already late into the night. He stretched his stiff body and walked to the bathroom. With a light press on the touchscreen, hot water filled the sink. Taking a deep breath, he leaned against the sink and submerged his head into the water. After holding his breath, he resurfaced from the water and briskly shook his head, feeling refreshed. Jiang Chen looked at his reflection in the mirror and let the water droplets roll down his face. It's been 3 months. He touched his chin, lost in his memories of 3 months ago, back in July. It was the middle of summer, and as soon as he came here, he encountered a girl on the verge of starvation. Jiang Chen laughed. He wasn't sure why he wanted to laugh. Maybe because the experiences in these past 3 months had been too exciting? Or because of his own transformation? Or perhaps because it had been too fulfilling. He vigorously shook the water from his head and picked up the electric razor. There are many things in this world that are quite convenient. He plastered a thin layer of plastic wrap around his mouth, and with a click of a button, he could shave his beard away in a second. This was a treasure to the world. In the washroom itself, there was a digitalized shower, a smart toilet, multifunctional bathtub with a sauna function, and even the toilet paper was more advanced than the modern world's. Life is a magical journey. Jiang Chen looked outside the window. The view faced the newly expanded wall. On top of the metal scaffolding were workers and engineers order the construction. He remembered that in the beginning, his only thought was to obtain gold and become a carefree, wealthy man. And as soon as he got his wish, the first thing he did was spend it lavishly, blowing it all away and experiencing the life he had envied before. But he fulfilled those wishes a long time ago. Now is it power? Jiang Chen stared at his right hand. The water droplets on the back of his hand reflected his matured face. Once he had the 500 million USD in his hands, a sprout called ambition grew in his heart. From that point onward, troubles began to hound him. Sometimes, he imagined what would have happened if he came to this world for the first time and didn't walk into this mansion. What if he didn't encounter the naughty and cute girl, didn't meet so many unforgettable people? Sneak some gold and sell it discreetly in the modern world, becoming a rich man in the shadows. If he met malicious forces, he would switch cities, or even citizenship, instead of using his power to push them away. If he met mutated bacteria he was unable to resist, he would leave the area. This place was an ATM for him anyway. There was no reason to risk his life to eliminate the bacteria source. But it would be a different kind of life. In the modern world, he would enjoy a lavish lifestyle, and in the apocalypse, he would discreetly explore. No attachment, no concerns, perhaps that was the safer choice? Perhaps it was the best way to survive in this world filled with danger? But it would lack the excitement of a vibrant life? Jiang Chen shook his head laughing and walked out the door. Without a myriad of beautiful encounters, what was the purpose of living? Since on productivity alone, man could not beat machine. At the door, he met Yao Yao on her way to the washroom. She walked half asleep and rubbed her drowsy eyes with her small hand. The pouted mouth looked like a cherry freshly picked off with the morning dew. Because she was anemic, she couldn't handle mornings very well. Although she seemed to be overly conscious about her small flaw, Jiang Chen didn't care. A dizzy loli was too cute to be true, especially when she was asleep and subconsciously sought to hug anything warm. Ahem, don't ask how he knew. Just as Jiang Chen was about to say hello, Yao Yao's drowsy face turned beet red, and her body temperature spiked. Gee, good morning. Good morning. Are you okay? Jiang Chen asked carefully as he gave a confused look at Yao Yao who had her head buried low. And nothing. Her adorable eyes avoided his, and her hands fiddled with each other behind her back. She doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Just as Jiang Chen was at a loss, Lin Lin also appeared walking towards the bathroom. When she saw him standing by the door, Lin Lin's pale face blushed, but she didn't act shyly. Instead, she threw a dirty glare at Jiang Chen who had put her in an awkward position. Pervert. What did I do? Completely lost, he didn't bother arguing back. Question marks floated over his head as he looked back and forth between Yao Yao and Lin Lin. But the two of them didn't have the slightest intention to open their mouths. Yao Yao seemed to want to say something, but her trembling lips suggested that she was too embarrassed to say it. The odd atmosphere lingered. Finally, the kind Yao Yao broke the silence. Yao Yao still didn't meet Jiang Chen's gaze, her cherry-like mouth pouting in displeasure. She murmured, "It is understandable that a ripe apple tastes good. Yao Yao is not angry. But it is better to be quieter because a small animal can only drool and watch, and be envious." Her voice became fainter the more she felt wronged. What's going on? Dumbfounded, Jiang Chen stared at Yao Yao. Her frail and unhappy attitude was cute, but what was this strange way of guilt-tripping? Pervert. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight Lin Lin mocking him. Thinking of this pervert's terrible attitude towards her, she felt particularly jubilant seeing his awkward attitude. Finally taking revenge. She wanted to burst into song to celebrate. But Lin Lin clearly overestimated her importance. Just as she finished saying that, a chilling stare was directed at her. I think a digitalized human doesn't need to eat. Or are you prepared to tell me what happened? Jiang Chen glared at her as he threatened without considering her feelings. It was only when Jiang Chen bullied Lin Lin that he didn't feel any guilt at all. Oh no, not even guilt, the sensation was through the roof. Lin Lin's expression took a turn for the worse. As usual, her confident look became sorrowful. You dare to threaten me. Enough, you're a pervert. Remember to keep it down when you do that thing at night. And, close the door. Lin Lin ran away sadly. Shut the door? Keep it down? Jiang Chen was lost until he recalled Sun Jiao's voice. He immediately looked at Yao Yao with difficulty. She was still throwing a bit of a tantrum. Her pouting lips were about to touch the tip of her nose. Yao Yao is already working so hard. And doesn't taste bad. The one with the loud voice must be happy. It doesn't have to do with taste. He finally comforted Yao Yao while feeling as though the mansion had become a little awkward. Chapter 138, Improving the Helicopter. The base was bustling. Excluding the women in the care center, the base's population approached 150, and they were the backbone of the future Fishbone base. Once the newly expanded wall was completed, 2 more apartment buildings would be added, and then they could consider accepting foreign populations. Lu Huaxing was still in charge of the construction. Needless to say, the ex-chief developer of Huajian Real Estate certainly had his strengths. Jiang Chen gave him the opportunity to demonstrate his ability, and he proved himself by designing the base's structure. An honest and hardworking man like him was best suited for jobs that required basic planning with no room for mistakes. With his foresight, Jiang Chen was able to choose the right people, and Lu Huaxing didn't disappoint him. He personally stood with the construction team every day on the front lines to expand the wall with 120% efficiency. For someone like Cheng Weigua, who had loyalty and a strong passion, Jiang Chen assigned him a role in the army as the leader of the civil force responsible for guarding the base and training the soldiers. As for Zhou Guoping, he was the type to be smooth and flattering, so Jiang Chen naturally stationed him in the 6th Street. This was partially because he had prior experience in intelligence collection and also because he had a bad history with Chu Nan. Although it was not directly Zhou Guoping's fault, he did violate Chu Nan's goddess in front of him, multiple times. For the sake of keeping the harmony in the base, it was not a terrible decision to separate them. On his way to a warehouse, Jiang Chen passed by the community center, which was a temporary hangar to store the Type 51 transport helicopter. Entering the hangar, Jiang Chen found Chu Nan hard at work repairing the helicopter. Virtual reality training chambers inside the base were installed with general weaponry training, and they could also copy general technical skills from the city library. But for a military transportation vehicle like the helicopter 51, which was considered top secret before the war, it was excluded from the civil force training courses. Therefore, the only person able to repair and operate this helicopter was Chu Nan. "How's the situation?" Jiang Chen asked as he approached. "Terrible." Chu Nan didn't turn around. His only response was to wipe his sweat with his arm and continue arranging the messy wiring. "Can it be repaired?" He glanced at the helicopter that seemed to come straight from science fiction and touched the circular side wings. He didn't see a rotor on the helicopter, but based on the appearance, the suspension force most likely came from this circular structure. The design of the body was aerodynamic with a hatch door open in the back. The words, transport helicopter, along with the pack symbol had all but faded, and the metal frame in the front was caved in from the impact. Even the bulletproof glass was completely shattered. The appearance wasn't so terrible, but Jiang Chen did question whether it would ever fly again. Should be fixable. The damage to the exterior is fine since it can be easily replaced with metal parts, but the problem is the electronic parts inside. Damn it, the entire engine control is burned. Can you believe it? Inside the city center, I met a monster that can fire an EMP from its mouth. Chu Nan cursed as he retracted a palm-sized box from the helicopter's side and connected the exposed wiring to the computer on the side to input some data. Jiang Chen's expression turned strange when he heard Chu Nan's words. He himself had encountered a monster that could emit EMP before. Isn't it hard to see mutants that can fire EMP? Chu Nan turned around with a look of surprise. Actually, it's common to see mutants that can fire EMP? Jiang Chen paused. Now that he thought about it, he knew Chu Nan ended up in that area because he failed a mission, but he never asked about the specifics. The mission was to eliminate a mutant creature and collect the crystal. We sent out 2 helicopters as well as a force of 12 soldiers equipped with power armors. When we arrived at the target location, I suspended the helicopter above the yellowish-green particles. Then our captain requested missile support. The missile would expose the body, the soldiers parachute, kill, and collect the crystal. That was the routine, and it wasn't my first time out on such a mission. It was a beautiful hit. The electromagnetic cannon fired from Luding Town directly hit the building and the concrete tumbled down like an avalanche. Just when we thought all we needed to do was go down and collect the crystals, Chu Nan paused with a mysterious smile. A red meat cannon as tall as half the building fired a red beam into the sky. It hit nothing, but the 2 helicopters immediately stalled. The monster seemed to have exploded, so the parachuted soldiers must have been successful. But who knows? Chu Nan shrugged as he inserted a processor into the helicopter body. Did no one from Luding Town come to save you? That's impossible. Chu Nan's mouth twitched. For Luding Town, pilots can be mass-produced. The only thing of value was this metal scrap right here, but the point of the crash was too far from the port. I almost flew half a city. Jiang Chen fell into silence. He suddenly recalled his time in the underground fallout shelter. The artificial intelligence had described the bug that infiltrated the fallout shelter. Hee hee, even if it missed, your metal pieces will become a metal casket. Klein particles? Jiang Chen muttered to himself. What's that? Chunan asked confusedly. Nothing. He would ask Lin Lin about Klein particles later. For now, Jiang Chen avoided the topic. Oh, once you finish repairing the helicopter, could you make some modifications to it? Modifications? Uh-huh. Such as installing a 50mm machine gun on the side and welding a fire cannon on the top. Different than looting town, Fishbone Base's focus was on land, hence, there was no need for long-distance combat, and it would better suit Fishbone Base's combat needs if the Type 51 was converted into an air cannon vehicle. Do you think the helicopter is a truck? That you could weld anything on top? Chunan couldn't help but ridicule him. What's the problem? Stumped, Jiang Chen frowned. There's a big problem. Chunan shook his head as he dragged the wiring from the computer. He picked up the screwdriver again to adjust parts inside the helicopter. Balance is a big issue. Even casual modifications could cause the helicopter to be unable to suspend itself or fly a certain distance before it flips over. Then let's not do a casual modification. Jiang Chen laughed as he patted Chunan on the shoulder. I'll leave the trouble to you, the expert. I need you to add some weapons on this thing, the stronger the firepower, the better. Hearing such an unprofessional request made Chunan rub his face with his palms. He let out a helpless sigh. I'll try my best. I'll install a machine gun on the side and design a new fire control system. As for the fire cannon, I'll install it near the back hatch. It should be okay if it's manually controlled. But if we modify it like this, the transport helicopter will become a combat helicopter. Jiang Chen smiled at Chunan's doubts. Exactly what I want. Chapter 139, Harmonious. After parting from Chunan, Jiang Chen took a stroll around the base. Now that everything was on the right track, there weren't many things that he needed to do as the boss. As long as he set the overarching direction, there were others to take care of the rest. For now, all he needed to do was transport food over from the modern world. For now, the tasks related to the Crusade's aftermath were finally resolved. The trouble with the mutated humans could be left for next spring. This chapter of the apocalypse could finally be turned, and now he had to head back to the modern world to take care of the mercenaries. Before leaving, Jiang Chen headed to the warehouse and found Wang Qin verifying the supplies. The freckled girl was more mature compared to when she first arrived, developing an air of professionalism. He remembered that she'd been like a startled squirrel. With her constantly anxious attitude and top-notch accounting grades, he assigned her to take care of the warehouse. Honestly, Jiang Chen felt happy watching the growth of his employees. Once she heard out Jiang Chen's intention, she took out a tablet terminal and reported the status of supplies within the base. We've organized the supplies that are ready to trade with 6th Street. There aren't many food supplies left, and with the current consumption speed, it can last for at most 10 days, she said with concern. The supplies were carefully recorded in a list, so precise that each bag of rice was listed with its warehouse location and by weight. The comprehensive software had also been designed by Yao Yao while the game A New Era was passed on to Du Yongkong for an update. Since he used to be a game developer, it matched his skill set. Yao Yao, other than the warehouse management software, also installed some more interesting gadgets for the base. For example, she set up the worker management system used by Lu Huaxing during construction, the control system for the cameras around the base, as well as the drone patrol system. You don't have to worry. I'll take care of it. What about the firearms? It was easy for him to take care of it once he returned to the modern world. Seeing the boss' confident look, Wang Qin smiled and nodded. She pressed a few more buttons on the tablet and pulled up another list. He roughly scanned the items on the list before Jiang Chen asked her to take him to the weaponry. He took around 10 Reaper rifles as well as 1 Ghost Sniper, a box of ammunition, and 10 grenades before returning to the base. He put the supplies away in the storage dimension and approached the poolside in the backyard. With a deep breath, he commenced traveling. When he opened his eyes, he was lying on a soft bed. He sat up and shook his head. Taking out the phone, he called Robert's hidden number. The phone rang 3 times before it went through. Hi, buddy, how have you been? Not bad. How goes the business? Jiang Chen didn't bother with small talk and cut straight to the point. Don't worry, the Irish guy loves acting. Delighted laughter could be heard from a distance on the other side. I've already arranged the things on Kane's side. When do you plan on leaving? I booked the ticket for tomorrow. Get Nick to leave, we'll meet invite. Okay, but he's already there, so contact him once you arrive. I've sent the itinerary to your email, Mr. President, Robert joked. After exchanging some light banter, Jiang Chen hung up, and after thinking for a bit called the food store owner he was partnered with. It would still be sent to the same storage, and the shipment would arrive in the afternoon. It was most likely his last order with them. Once Xinlong food processing plant got on track, he would opt to use that channel instead. Stuffing the phone back into his pocket, Jiang Chen got up and left the bedroom. A mansion this spacious with only 2 people living inside did feel empty. He stepped on the expensive hardwood floor. Looking at the delicate decorations, Jiang Chen suddenly felt emotional. He'd bought this mansion a while back, but he never took the time to enjoy it since he'd been so busy handling tasks in the modern and apocalypse world. It seemed as though he was living life with too rough a pace. Maybe sometime later, he would take a vacation. As he ruminated, Jiang Chen strolled into the kitchen. He gently pushed the glass door to the kitchen and saw Aisha with an apron, concentrated on chopping vegetables. A smirk appeared on his face as he sneaked closer and embraced Aisha from behind. The serene figure stiffened but loosened up as soon as she realized who it was. "You're back." Aisha gently smiled and intimately tilted her head to rub it against Jiang Chen's face. Did you prepare the meal for me?" This girl's Han was getting better and better. The technology of the future was truly remarkable. "Not yet, but I am now." Aisha smiled and softly squeezed Jiang Chen's hand. She led him to the side and opened the fridge. "What do you want to eat? My cooking has improved a lot." "I want to eat you." Jiang Chen grinned and blew into her ear. Her perfect face colored by a tinge of pink, she looked away from embarrassment. She faintly asked, "Could we wait until after the meal?" "After the meal? Don't you want to do it here?" Here?" A hint of anxiousness appeared in her eyes. Seeing her adorable look, Jiang Chen was satisfied and didn't tease her anymore, so he finished his sentence with the same smirk. "I want to eat you, our cooked dishes." Aisha froze, then angrily threw a few soft punches at Jiang Chen's chest before leaving his hug. "We'll eat fried fish today." It was one of the few times he felt like the head of the family. He didn't interrupt Aisha from cooking anymore since he didn't want to eat overcooked dishes. He sank into the living room sofa and relaxed while watching a Hollywood film in his home theater that cost 10,000 RMB. It wasn't as sophisticated as the one in 6th Street's Paradise Island Hotel, but it was a different experience. It was the perk of being rich. Most people used their laptops to watch a film on 720p, and some would spend money to see it in IMAX or 3D. But the real luxury was to enjoy a theater-level film experience in the comfort of your own home without the annoying kids. It would be even better with some popcorn. The movie finished exactly at noon. Aisha virtuously set the table before calling Jiang Chen over to eat. A full-course lunch. In the center was a fried fish dish seasoned with red soup and green onion. It was Aisha who thought to combine Han and Middle Eastern dishes. Without a doubt, the aesthetics were superb, and the taste was ephemeral. Wow, your cooking is getting better and better," Jiang Chen raised his thumb and exclaimed. Aisha softly smiled. "As long as you like it. How have you been?" "Pretty good. The environment here is peaceful," Aisha exclaimed. She lowered her head to look at the utensils in front of her as she quietly said, "Just like heaven." Slightly lost, Jiang Chen watched Aisha's face, but the words he was about to say was stuck in his throat. Sensing Jiang Chen's hesitation, Aisha was confused and tilted her head slightly to look at him. I'm just uncertain now." Jiang Chen sighed, saying with a troubled smile, "I planned on taking you to Ukraine tomorrow, but since you just escaped from war, you would probably hate going back to it." Aisha quietly stood up and walked to his side. She surrounded him with her arms and gently pressed her face against his. "I am yours. I'm willing to become your sword, to fight for you. If you need me, there's no need to hesitate, just use me." "I never thought of you as a tool," Jiang Chen lightly said, placing his hands over hers, "and I've never used anyone. If you feel repulsive towards weapons, there's no need to force yourself." The rest was blocked. The silence lasted for a brief moment before Aisha removed her finger. "If I felt weapons were repulsive, I never would have used them in the virtual reality. That thing doesn't belong here, right?" Jiang Chen wasn't surprised, but his smile was still a bit forced. "You knew?" Although the mutated human that appeared out of thin air should have exposed something already, Aisha never asked, so he never had the opportunity to explain. Aisha nodded. "That training. Once you pass it, it'll unlock new weapons and new training materials that include more powerful rifles and even rifle without bullets." "No bullets? Is it a Gauss rifle?" Du Yongkong had misinterpreted Jiang Chen's words. He wanted him to add a limit on the virtual reality system to include only weapons that existed between the years 2000 and 2020, but Du Yongkong instead designed a game mode that gradually unlocked tiers as the training continued. Whatever. If it's Aisha who knows, there's nothing to worry about. Sensing the trust in his body temperature, Aisha gently closed her eyes. "Tomorrow, we'll go to Ukraine." Since Aisha didn't feel repulsed, it would be pretentious to act uncertain about this question. Aisha nodded. Do you know how to use a sniper? The ghost sniper. Yes. She trained in wielding that gun in the virtual reality training system. Once we arrive in Kane, I need you to protect me in trades. Because we're in a sensitive area and the business partner is no ordinary target, you might have to engage in combat with some civil force snipers. Aisha smiled and pressed her soft finger against Jiang Chen's lips. You're overprotective. I'm not small anymore. Hearing this, Jiang Chen thought for a moment before a relieved smile appeared on his face. You're right. Enjoying the tranquil moment, Jiang Chen suddenly thought of something and leaned closer to Aisha's ear. Speaking of which, it's after the meal. She remembered her promise to Jiang Chen in the kitchen, and she blushed again, lowering her head shyly. Let's go back to the room. No. Back to the kitchen. It was an evil laugh. That's right, incredibly evil. Translator's thoughts. Chapter 140, Arriving at Vite. Borispor International Airport. A young man in a black sweater, casual pants, and a duff bag looked around the empty airport. What is your purpose of coming to Kane? A middle-aged man in uniform looked up and glanced at him a few more times than usual while fidgeting with the passport in hand. Asian face, 2 years ago, it would not be rare. But right now, any foreign face was worth the extra glance. Travel. The man smiled and exposed his white teeth. The middle-aged officer was clearly shocked as he looked at him oddly again. I hope you enjoy your trip. The passport was fine. The officer didn't say anything as he mechanically stamped it and let him go. Phew. Walking out of the airport, Jiang Chen relaxingly stretched and scanned the unfamiliar street. Vite's sky was clear. Bright sunshine, clear blue sky, clean street, as well as the towering trees. Baroque and Byzantine style of architecture could be seen everywhere. The colorful brick walls resembled a small town in the Middle Ages. Other than the modern-looking street lamp and signs, the vibrancy of rich culture was everywhere in the city. He heard that Omsk and Lugansk were currently fighting, but the flames of war obviously didn't spread to here yet. Even then, the streets looked empty. Jiang Chen was disappointed to not be able to witness the beauty-infested Kane, as rumors said. Of course, the purpose of the trip was not to see beauties. Not long, a personal vehicle stopped in front of him. The window rolled down, and a head with a red nose peeked out. Do you need a taxi? Jiang Chen barely understood the English laced with a Russian accent. Of course, take me to Pyramir Hotel. Hearing this, the driver also glanced at him a few more times. Although Jiang Chen's Han-accented English was hard to understand, as a local, he easily made out the words, Premier Hotel. Only the wealthy could afford those 5-star hotels. Jiang Chen opened the door, sat on the front passenger seat, and strapped on the seat belt. The sturdy-looking Kenyan driver started the car and drove out smoothly. He heard that to ride in Kane, the first thing was to set the price. Or he would be scammed. A ride that only cost May 30th end up costing 150 once they arrive at the destination. But Jiang Chen didn't really mind as it was pocket change for him. Tell me about Vite, what's fun here? Jiang Chen started to chat with the driver by his side. Central Street and Independence Square are all not bad places. It's great for shopping and sightseeing. The driver was also talkative. He held the steering wheel and began telling Jiang Chen about the sightseeing places in Vite. If you are interested in the history and culture of the place, you could check out Golden Gate. A lot of tourists like to take pictures there. As well as the Memorial Museum in the right bank of the Dnieper River. When they started to talk about the historical sites, the rigid face worn by time had a proud expression. Oh? Could you tell me about the Memorial Museum? Jiang Chen was quite interested. Although his destination for this trip was Omsk in the east and he probably won't have time to explore this beautiful city, it would be cool to listen to the perspective of a local. But for some reason, when Jiang Chen asked about the specifics of the Memorial Museum, a gloom seemed to cover the driver's face. To remember the victory of defending the country. Darn, I remember when I was young, it was beautiful. What about now? I think this place is not bad. Jiang Chen looked out the window. The weather was lovely, the sunshine was bright, a great place to explore. It's absolutely terrible, the driver said emotionlessly. People with guns divided into 2 sides, and the innocent people are stuck in the middle. Back when Soviets ruled, this place was not like this. Jiang Chen looked at him but didn't continue with the topic. For the locals, it seemed to be a remorseful topic. The textbook he learned seemed to provide a simple black and white picture. That was the only perspective he saw about the entire event. He faintly recalled that when the Lenin statue was pushed down, the citizens from Kane celebrated. It was truly shocking when Vite welcomed democracy, the faces of the people were cheering. Who actually represented them? The silence only ensued for a brief moment before the driver spoke again. Is this your first time in Kane? That's right. Jiang Chen smiled. After hesitating for a moment, the kind-hearted driver continued, Vite's security is actually terrible, far worse than what Poroshenko described. Every day, there are countless foreigners like you being robbed, and of course, locals included too. I will be careful. Jiang Chen noncommittally smiled. Robbery? He didn't think anyone in this world would be able to beat him. Seeing Jiang Chen's unbothered expression, the driver didn't say anything. He already did his part in alerting him. Also, some police may give you trouble due to your passport. In these situations, the easiest way is to pay him $100, or just insist you haven't heard about this law, and demand that you contact your embassy before paying the fine. I'll be careful. For the kind-hearted alert of the driver, Jiang Chen happily accepted. The car arrived at its destination. When he got off the car, Jiang Chen left $100 on the seat and signaled there was no need for change. The driver didn't refuse, but he looked grateful by the gesture. The days were getting harder and harder. $100 for Jiang Chen may be nothing, but for him, it was a sizable amount of money. Jiang Chen hauled his duffel bag into the hotel, and Jiang Chen showed the reception at the front desk his confirmation before he took the key. The premier hotel was luxuriously decorated. The square and upright giant structure demonstrated the philosophy of Russian architecture, and the European decor and lighting had a vibe of beauty originating from its detailing. His hotel room was on the top floor, the most expensive presidential suite. But it was much cheaper compared to the Sheraton in Sanya, as a night only cost him 2,200 renminbi. The hotel had a complete set of amenities with a casino, bar, sauna, outdoor pool, gym, indoor pool, and spa. But because the purpose of the trip was not a vacation, he would not have the time to enjoy those things. He carried the bag into the elevator, went to the top floor, and walked to the room that belonged to him. Needless to say, Jiang Chen looked out of place standing there. Most of the people living here were all men in suits. His casual wear on the top floor filled with presidential suites did look odd. But who cared? Being able to live here proved his financial ability. The moment Jiang Chen took out a key, a blonde, blue-eyed, gorgeous-figured beauty walked up with a cheerful smile. Do you need service? Surprisingly, although she stuttered a little, she spoke Han. But after giving it a thought, Jiang Chen cursed in his mind. How many fellow citizens did she service to be able to speak Han this well? No, thank you. Jiang Chen smiled courteously and rejected the offer. If he were on vacation, Jiang Chen without standards wouldn't mind having some intimate affairs with the foreign beauty. But since he had business to take care of, he must resist the temptation. She looked at Jiang Chen in surprise. In her memory, rarely would millionaires coming from Han refuse to have an intimate affair with her. But she didn't say much more. She smiled and left in elegant steps. Jiang Chen touched his slightly hot nose as he pushed open the door. He turned on the lights. Jiang Chen threw the bag on the bed and walked straight to the window as he cautiously closed the blinds. He took out a clock-sized device from his bag and placed it on the nightstand. He thought that it was too dumb to use an EMP every time he needed to counter-monitor, so Jiang Chen discussed with Yao Yao, and she used recycled electronic parts to create an anti-monitor device. Once opened, any cameras within a radius of 20 m would be affected. The screen would be locked to a picture of the instant the machine started. Including communication, any communication attempted outside the whitelist would be blocked. Although it may be redundant, it was better to be safe. He took out his phone. Jiang Chen called Aisha, who left first. How's your side doing? Arrived at Osk rural area. Under the plan, the two head to Kane separately. Not only do they take different flights, but Aisha will also arrive a day ahead in Osk rural area controlled by the government force. Although Jiang Chen was still worried, Aisha reassured him. Within the virtual reality training system, she received an A on sniper training. With the help of the genetic vaccine and sophisticated weapons that far exceeded the current era, there was no need to worry. Perhaps just like what Aisha said, sometimes Jiang Chen could be a little overprotective. I will meet Nick tomorrow and then head to Osk. I'll send you my itinerary. Be safe. Then, Jiang Chen hung up the phone. He peeked at the small bright sky. Jiang Chen stretched, and then took out the laptop from his bag. Connected it to the Wi-Fi, and opened up his email.